The young girl couldn't help but scratch her nose for 6 years. What the doctors discovered was incredible. Hello everyone. Enjoy these relaxing moments while you watch Chicago. On a winter morning, the air was icy but dry. On a stone bench at the corner of the schoolyard, Alissa sat huddled, one arm clutching her backpack. The other hand scratched her nose repeatedly as if she were seized by an uncontrollable reflex. Alissa, stop scratching. You're bleeding, whispered Eleanor, one of the few classmates who still spoke to her, her eyes filled with worry and fear. I can't take it anymore, Alissa groaned, her voice muffled like someone with a cold. I feel like something is crawling inside my nose. A trickle of bright red blood ran down her lip. Eleanor instinctively stepped back. The school bell rang. The children rushed inside, but Alissa remained seated. Her face was pale, her eyes dark with fatigue. The itching had started when she was 6 years old. At first, it was just a slight discomfort, but over time, it had become a relentless obsession that did not subside despite visits to dozens of doctors, ranging from private clinics to major hospitals. It could be chronic allergic rhinitis, suggested one doctor. No, I think it's a sensory nerve disorder, another shook his head. There's nothing to worry about. Some children go through this phase and grow out of it, concluded a third. But it never went away. The itching intensified, moving up the bridge of her nose, followed by headaches and dizziness. Worse still, Alissa had frequent nosebleeds at night. What's wrong with that girl? She won't stop sniffing all the time, a boy asked loudly in class, making everyone laugh. Ooh, don't sit near her, a girl shouted. Soon Alissa was completely isolated. No one in class wanted to sit next to her. At lunch, she always ate alone. The annoyed teachers believed she was making things up to get attention. You need to be more serious, Alissa. No one scratches their nose constantly because something is crawling inside. Her homeroom teacher, Miss Catherine, said coldly. I'm not making anything up. It's real. I can feel it, like something alive, Alissa sobbed. Miss Catherine shook her head inwardly. You need to see a psychologist. Things were even worse at home. Their small apartment on the 4th floor of a Brooklyn building was always quiet and cold. Alissa's stepmother, Martha, was rarely home, and when she was, she barely addressed a few words to Alissa. Their relationship was more like that of a boss and a maid. That afternoon, as Alissa walked through the door, Martha shouted, Go clean the kitchen. I'm not your damn servant. I'm a little tired. My nose bled at school this morning. Tired? Still making up bullshit. Why don't you just drop dead? Alissa froze. She bit her lip. Dried blood crusted her nostrils. She simply nodded and headed silently to the kitchen. That night, while she was mopping, the itching surged like furious waves under her skin. She dropped the mop, sat on the floor, and desperately clawed at both sides of her nose, her head spinning. Just then, Martha stormed out of the living room, a belt in her hand. I can't breathe. It's moving in my nose. Alissa screamed. Crack! The belt lashed across her back, a stinging burn like fire. Shut up, you're such a drama queen. No one pities a crazy person. No one defended her. The neighbors heard the cries and remained silent. Martha was the kind woman everyone greeted, who smiled and said she loved Alissa very much. But the poor girl was a little disturbed. Once, Alissa tried to talk to her biology teacher, Miss Thesa, an older woman who paid close attention to her students. Miss Thesa, my nose. It's not normal. I feel like there's something inside. As if it's alive. Miss Thesa narrowed her eyes. Are you serious? Does it hurt? Yes, and I get nosebleeds too. I can't sleep most nights because of it. Miss Thesa paused, then spoke seriously. I will talk to the school doctor, but don't mention this to anyone else, okay? Otherwise, they'll say you're making things up again. Alissa nodded. She felt a small glimmer of hope, faint but real. The following week, staff from the city's child protection services came to the school. They interviewed Alissa privately. Is there anything you'd like to share? Has someone at home hit you? asked a woman named Lavra in a soft voice. Alissa nodded slightly, continuously scratching her nose. My stepmother. She hits me. But the most important thing is that there is something very strange in my nose. Laura's eyes widened. Can you explain that? I feel it moving. When I scratch, I can feel it twitch. It feels like a creature. Lavra exchanged a look with her colleague and noted something down. The conversation ended quietly. A few days later, Martha showed up at the school smiling. I heard someone reported that Alissa was being mistreated. That's ridiculous. She has a history of imaginary thoughts since she was little. A psychologist even noted last year that she showed slight paranoid tendencies. Miss Catherine nodded. We have also noticed strange behavior. Perhaps she should see a psychologist again? Lavra had no choice but to agree. Disappointed and without concrete proof, it was only a child's word. And Martha, with her clever lies, won again. That night, Alissa curled up in her bed. Her nose wouldn't stop itching. She scratched until her skin cracked, blood staining the pillow. Her eyes were wide open. She couldn't sleep. Why does no one believe me? She whispered. Why can't they see it? I'm not crazy. In the darkness, the light from the street lamps filtered through the window slats, casting long strips of light on the floor. She touched her nose again. It was stiff, as if the skin were pulsating. Something deep inside was watching every breath she took. Another night passed, and the 12-year-old girl began a new day with dark circles under her eyes, bloodied fingers, and a nameless terror throbbing with every breath. The clinking of dishes echoed in the small kitchen. Alissa washed them under the dim yellow light, her hands numb from the cold water. A bruise from a whip mark still marked the back of her right hand. She didn't dare stop, even for a moment. Hurry up, do you think you're a damn princess? Martha's voice rang out from the living room, full of rage. Alissa swallowed hard and replied trembling. Yes, I'm almost finished. Oh! So you dare talk back? You disrespectful little brat. Seconds later, Martha was behind her, a plastic slipper in her hand. Crack! The blow landed on Alissa's shoulder, nearly knocking her down. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. You live in my house, eat my food, wear my clothes, and you think you deserve forgiveness? Alissa bit her lip, continuing to wash the dishes while tears streamed down her face. Her nose began to itch again in the same way it always did when her emotions rose. That thing inside her was reacting. She scratched quickly, trying not to let Martha see. But Martha saw. Still doing that thing with your nose? What? Do you need attention that badly? You think I don't know you want people to feel sorry for you? It's not that. It really itches. Shut up. Martha grabbed Alissa by the hair and dragged her to the dark storage room under the stairs. A dusty, windowless space with just a rickety wooden chair and moldy walls. Stay here until morning. Think about your stupid stunts. Please, I'm afraid of the dark. I'm not your mother. I was forced to raise you. Without your father's damn will, you'd be on the street by now. The door slammed and was locked from the outside. Alissa burst into tears. She huddled on the floor, shivering from the cold dot in the darkness. The itching exploded like a wild animal. She clawed at her nose, blood dripping onto her hand. And for the first time, she swore she heard a faint sound like a low squeak deep in her nasal cavity. The next day, Alissa arrived at school wearing a thick scarf that covered most of her face. Eleanor approached and whispered, "Are you okay? I texted you yesterday, but you didn't reply." I was locked in the storage room all night. Eleanor's eyes widened. Why? Martha said it was because I was making things up. I just wanted someone to believe me. Eleanor squeezed Alissa's hand tight. I believe you, but I'm also afraid of Martha. She came to school once and talked to my teacher. Everyone thinks she's a good mother. Yes, everyone thinks that. That afternoon, Miss Catherine, the homeroom teacher, called Alissa to the office. Do you know why I called you, Alissa? No, ma'am. Someone reported your case to Child Protection. Do you want to say anything? Alissa clenched her fists and looked down. A moment of silence passed. I think it's unfair. I'm not lying. I really have itching every day. And Martha doesn't love me. Do you believe she hits you? Yes, and she locks me up. Ms. Catherine nodded. You must be honest, Alissa. This is serious. Alissa looked her teacher straight in the eye. I'm not lying. But I know people always believe Martha over me. And, of course, after the meeting, Martha returned once more to the school. All smiles. I'm sorry if anything I've done has caused concern. Alissa is a special child. She's been traumatized since she was little. My husband, her father, died in an accident, and I don't think she ever really recovered. We understand, Ms. Catherine nodded. It's not easy raising a child with complex psychological symptoms. I try to do my best, but sometimes she makes things up, like claiming there's a living creature in her nose. It's heartbreaking. We will recommend she attend more counseling, said Miss Thesa. Martha smiled softly. I really appreciate that. I only want what's best for Alissa. That evening, Martha threw Alissa's old school bag onto the bed. If you ever dare speak ill of me again, you won't go to school anymore. Do you hear me? I didn't speak ill. I just told the truth. The truth? My ass. She lunged forward, grabbing Alissa by the collar and shaking her violently. The young girl screamed in fear. I'm sorry. I won't say anything else. Too late. Slap. Another violent blow. Alissa was thrown onto the bed, her head hitting the corner of the table. She lay there, dazed, blood flowing from her nose, this time mixed with a dark gray mucus. Martha paused for a moment, looking at the strange substance on Alissa's hand with a frown. Disgusting. And now you're leaking who knows what. Then she turned and walked away, leaving Alissa alone in her pain. The next day, Miss Thesa, the biology teacher, took Alissa aside again during recess. Do you remember what we talked about last time, Alissa? Yes, I remember. I found it strange that there are reports claiming you are mentally unstable. But I don't believe that. Were you really hit? Alissa nodded. She doesn't treat me like a person. To her, I'm just a burden. Every day she calls me useless. And your nose? Do you still feel that thing? Yes, it's even stronger now. I can clearly feel it, like soft roots moving back and forth. Last night, there was black mucus. It wasn't blood. Miss Thesa went quiet, visibly shaken. She opened her wallet and took out a small card. This is the business card for Dr. Smith. He's a new neurologist in Chicago. I spoke to him a bit about you. He said, if you agree, he will examine you for free. Alissa took the card with trembling hands. For the first time, someone was listening to her seriously. That night, Martha came home late. She smelled disinfectant coming from Alissa's room. What the hell are you doing in here? Nothing. Just some cleaning. What are you hiding in that bag? Alissa backed away, protecting her backpack. Nothing, just papers. Martha snatched the bag and searched it. Dr. Smith's card fell out. What is this? Who gave you this? Miss Thesa. But it's just in case I need it. Martha clenched her jaw, tore the card in two, and threw it on the floor. You think you're clever, huh? No one is going to help you. I'm all you have, and you'd better behave before I make you disappear like your father. Alissa froze. The last sentence hit her like a knife. For a brief moment, she saw Martha's true eyes cold, devoid of humanity. That night, for the first time, Alissa took out the phone she had hidden under her mattress and turned on the flashlight. She leaned toward the mirror and gently lifted her nose. Inside, under the dim light, she saw something black, something like a root that was twitching slightly. Alissa shivered, trying to record it. But before she could save the video, Martha kicked the door open. Filming now, are we? The phone was snatched from her hands and smashed on the floor. Pieces flew everywhere as Martha stomped on it. You're just useless trash I was forced to take in. I should have strangled you the day you were born. Alissa fell to her knees, covering her head. But inside, the thing in her nose began to wriggle violently, as if it too were enraged. Alissa sat alone in the school bathroom, the door locked, her pale face lit by the sickly yellow light. She took a small mirror and a mini flashlight from her coat pocket. Her hands were shaking. "This time, I'll get it," she whispered, her voice cracked from countless sleepless nights. She tilted her head and gently opened her left nostril. The dull itch moved up the bridge of her nose like a tiny current running through her nerves. She turned on the flashlight and aimed it at the mirror. Suddenly, a black shape appeared. Its form was indistinct, but it twitched faintly like a living root. Alissa held her breath frozen. In that moment, she no longer felt like herself, but like the host of an alien creature. "No, not possible," she whispered. She grabbed her phone and started recording. But suddenly, a thud from somewhere nearby made her jump. The camera shook. The light flickered. The video became blurred just as the creature began to move more violently. "Damn it," she gasped. At that moment, someone knocked loudly on the bathroom door. "Who's in there?" She heard a teacher's voice. "I'm coming out right now." Alissa quickly cleaned herself up and hid the phone in her shirt. When she came out, she met the suspicious gaze of Miss Lucy, her French teacher. "Something is wrong, Alissa. You look exhausted." I just have a cold." "Ma'am, your nose." Alissa raised her hand to wipe it. The blood was no longer red. It was brownish, sticky, and had a strange, foul odor. It smelled like rotting meat. That night at home, Alissa secretly retrieved an old phone she had hidden under the bed. Fortunately, Martha hadn't found it. She planned to send the video to Eleanor. "Someone has to see this. I'm not crazy." The message with the video was sent. But a few minutes later, she received a single reply. "Disgusting. Don't text me anymore." Immediately, the block symbol appeared. Alissa froze. Her hand dropped. Tears flowed down her face uncontrollably. She breathed heavily, reaching for her nose. The itch was now burning like fire. She scratched and scratched until her skin bled. "What the hell are you doing in there?" Martha roared from the other side of the door. "Nothing. Open the door." The door burst open. Martha stormed in and snatched the phone. The video was still half open. "Still filming this weird bullshit? You want people to call you a monster?" "I just want someone to believe me. It's real. It's inside my nose." "Shut up. You're driving me crazy." Martha hit her with a resounding slap, throwing Alissa's head against the edge of the table. She staggered, her nose bleeding again, worse than usual. And the smell was overwhelming. Martha wrinkled her nose and covered it. "What is that stench?" "That's it. It's that thing. Enough. From now on, you aren't allowed to have any devices in this house." She stomped on the phone, breaking it. Then she dragged Alissa out of the room and locked her in the closet again. "Stay there and think about what you've done. The more you talk, the more you make people want to throw you into a psychiatric hospital." The next morning, she arrived at school with a bruise on her forehead. When Miss Thesa saw her, she jumped. "Alissa, what happened to your head?" "I slipped down the stairs." "Really?" "Yes." Thesa didn't believe her. She looked down and noticed scratch marks on the back of Alissa's hand. "Do you want me to talk to someone for you?" "No one believes me. Even my best friend thinks I'm disgusting." Miss Thesa looked Alissa straight in the eye. "You aren't disgusting. Those who are too afraid to face the truth are the ones who should be ashamed." That afternoon, Alissa was lying on her bed, the lights out. The room was bathed in the dim gray glow of twilight. She closed her eyes, but couldn't sleep. The stench of rot in her nose had now spread to her throat. She felt like she was decomposing. Suddenly, a violent itch hit her. She sat up with a gasp and rushed to the bathroom. She turned on the light and took the mirror again. This time it was clearer than ever. It wasn't just a root. It looked like a tiny twitching trunk contracting with each of her breaths. When she directed the light directly onto it, something sparkled like an eye reflecting the beam. Alissa screamed. "What are you? Get out of my body." Martha ran in from the living room. "Now there is something in my nose. I swear I'm not crazy. It's alive. It has eyes. I saw it. Martha froze for a few seconds, then approached with dark eyes. You're starting to scare me. Please, Mama, don't hit me. I'm telling the truth. Do you hear yourself? You sound like a mental patient, imagining everything. No, I recorded it on video. What video? What phone? Alissa froze. She realized all the evidence had been destroyed. Martha looked at her with a smug smile, as if she had known all along. You have nothing. Just a little psychopath living off pity. No one is going to believe you, Alissa. Night fell. Alissa didn't eat. Martha didn't bother to ask. She lay with her face against the wall, clutching her pillow. She could feel the creature merging with her second by second. Her breathing made it move, as if they shared the same nervous system. She didn't know exactly what lived in her, but clearly it was growing. If I don't do anything, it will kill me sooner or later, she whispered in the dark. A sudden sharp pain shot through the bridge of her nose. She sat up abruptly. Blood was flowing from her nose more than ever, mixed with fine gray threads. Clenching her teeth, Alissa grabbed toilet paper and stuffed it into her nostrils. It was useless. Blood continued to gush, the smell of rot filling the room. She gasped for air and collapsed on the floor. In that semi-conscious moment, she saw a pair of eyes like those in the mirror staring at her from inside her own body. And she knew that everything was just beginning. In the middle of a normal math class, Alissa slumped over her desk. She wouldn't stop sniffing. Her face was pale, her eyes glassy from a severe lack of sleep. Alissa, called Ms. Rachel. No response. Alissa, her voice rose. The whole class turned toward the back of the room. Alissa slowly raised her head, but instead of answering, she collapsed onto the desk. A drop of blood fell from her nose onto her notebook, then a second, then a third, until blood flowed in a long trail onto the classroom floor. The school nurse immediately called an ambulance. At St. Joseph's Hospital, Dr. Michael Smith, a neurologist recently transferred from Denver, took over the case. Alissa lay motionless on the gurney, her face pale, her nose filled with gauze. Martha had just arrived, wearing her usual fake panicked look. What happened? I told you she was mentally unstable. Are you trying to kill her? She screamed at the nurses. Dr. Smith stepped forward, speaking calmly. We are examining her now. She shows signs of blood loss, inflamed nasal tissue, and abnormal movements inside the nasal cavity. Movements? What do you mean by movements? A kind of contraction of the soft tissue. I need to perform a deep endoscopy to determine the cause. No, absolutely not. Martha intervened, her eyes wide. She's suffered trauma and imagines all sorts of crazy things. She claims there's an eye in her nose. Roots. Do you really believe a delusional child? Smith paused for a moment and looked Martha straight in the eye. But this is the third severe nosebleed. And this time, there is a foul odor. If we don't investigate, it could be life-threatening. I am her legal guardian. I do not consent to any kind of surgery. Alissa woke up under the harsh glare of the hospital neon lights above her. She groaned softly. Smith leaned over. You're awake. Do you remember your name? Alissa. Alissa Wilson. Good. How do you feel? My head hurts and my nose. I feel like something is boiling inside. She turned her head to see Martha standing behind the doctor. Her face was icy. Alissa bit her lip and looked at Smith. Can I speak to the doctor alone? No, snapped Martha. If she has something to say, I'm staying here to hear it. I want to talk about what's in my nose. Smith signaled to the nurse. Please escort Mrs. Martha outside for a moment. I object, cried Martha. I'm her mother. You are her guardian, not a doctor. This is medical protocol, Smith said firmly. Once alone, Alissa sat up slowly, trembling. Doctor, do you believe me? Just tell me the truth. There is something alive in my nose. It moves. I saw it in the mirror. I even recorded it once, but my mother broke my phone. Smith sat next to her, his face serious. You said you saw it once. It looked like roots twitching gently. Another time I saw an eye. A human eye, staring right at me. He paused. Part of him wanted to ignore this, but Alissa's eyes were not delusional. They were full of a desperate plea. A few hours later, Smith made the decision to perform a nasal endoscopy without informing Martha in advance. He scheduled Alissa for a private exam at the clinic he worked with. That afternoon, in the endoscopy room, Smith prepared the equipment while Nurse Emily stood nearby. Alissa sat in the chair, her heart pounding. "Is it going to hurt?" she asked. "It will be a little uncomfortable, but you're a brave girl." The camera began to go down into her left nostril. The screen first displayed normal structures, swollen mucous membranes, a few old scratches. Then the image began to glitch. "Emily, check the signal." "The equipment is fine, doctor." "It's not the machine." All three stared at the screen. Something dark began to appear in the humid darkness of her nasal cavity. Suddenly, a human eye snapped open, staring directly at the camera. Alissa screamed. "There, that's it. I told you." The eye blinked once, then disappeared behind a thin tissue resembling a membrane. Smith stepped back slightly, his hands trembling. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. "My God, what is that?" Emily whispered. "That's not human tissue." Alissa gasped, holding her face, her whole body shaking. "I'm not crazy." "You saw it, didn't you?" Smith sat next to her and nodded slowly. "You aren't crazy, but this thing... It goes far beyond conventional medicine. It's not a disease. It's a living organism." That evening, when Alissa returned home, Martha was waiting in the kitchen with a belt in her hand. "Where were you?" "Sneaking around like a damn rat. I went to see the doctor without your permission." "Who told you that you could go?" "Dr. Smith. He knows now." "He saw it." Martha froze. Her expression changed instantly from rage to panic. "He saw what?" "The eye in my nose." Martha stepped forward, grabbing Alissa's shoulders hard. "Listen to me well, brat. If you ever open your mouth again, I'll make you disappear like your father. Understood?" Alissa looked her straight in the eye, tears flowing down her face. "What did you do to my father?" "That's none of your business." That night, Smith sat alone in his office. He replayed the endoscopy recording. Over and over, the eye was not a hallucination. He checked Alissa's hospital records in the system. There were signs of file tampering. Strange, the endoscopy from when she was 6 was almost entirely deleted. He searched the list of previous treating physicians. One name stood out. Dr. Johnson. Smith whispered. "Johnson! Why does that name ring a bell?" He found an old file and discovered that Johnson had been subject to an internal investigation for alleged involvement in unauthorized neurological experiments on children. But even more shocking, in the staff list of the research center from that year, another name appeared. Martha Parker, research assistant. Smith froze. He understood now. Alissa was not just a typical patient. She could be the surviving victim of a covered-up experiment. He stood up and took out his phone. "Alissa, if you have anything, videos, even fragments of this organism, I need them. We must make this public." The next morning, Chicago was draped in gray. In a small room at Dr. Smith's private clinic, Alissa sat huddled in a chair, wrapped in a gray hoodie. Under the flickering fluorescent lights, her eyes were sunken, and her nose was covered with gauze compresses. Smith checked the endoscopy equipment one last time. He spoke softly. "This time, we will record the whole procedure. If it's like what we saw last night, it will be the proof." "But if Martha finds out," whispered Alissa, her voice trembling. "I will protect you. You just have to trust me." Nurse Emily nodded and added gently, "Don't worry, Alissa. You aren't alone anymore." The endoscopy began. This time, the probe was inserted deeper into her left nasal cavity. The screen displayed crystal-clear images down to the smallest capillary. Smith frowned. A dark mass appeared. It looked neither like coral nor necrotic tissue. It looked like an independent living organism with its own cellular structure shimmering with bioluminescence. Suddenly, an eye snapped open in the center of the dark mass, staring directly at the lens. Emily jumped. "Oh my God, it really has an eye!" Smith leaped to his feet, his hands shaking. The eye blinked once clear, deliberate, as if it were looking back at them. Alissa trembled in her seat. It's looking at you. I can feel it." Smith immediately turned off the equipment. "That's enough. We have the footage." He saved the video, encrypted it, and copied it onto 3 separate devices: an external hard drive, a USB key, and an encrypted cloud server. Emily whispered, "Doctor, this isn't a typical parasite. It's neurologically integrated." Smith nodded. "It lives in her olfactory area, and it is conscious." Alissa put her head in her hands. "I can't sleep. It talks to me. Not with words, with feelings. It forces me to keep it alive." After arranging for Alissa's temporary stay with Miss Thesa, Smith called an old friend, Dr. Paul Davis, an expert in extreme neurobiology who had once worked with the National Research Institute. "Paul, I need to ask you something. Do you remember Johnson's project in 2016? You mean the neural circuit project?" "Yes, the one involving parasites capable of interfacing with human neural systems." Paul remained silent for a moment. "That project was shut down. All findings sealed. Johnson had his license revoked for implanting unapproved tissue into children test subjects." "Why are you bringing this up?" "Because I'm looking at what could be the only surviving result of that project. A 12-year-old girl. I have a video. There is an eye inside her nasal tissue." Paul fell completely silent. Meanwhile, Martha was still unaware that the video had been saved. She burst into Alissa's room, searching everything, looking for phones, recorders, any trace of evidence. "You think you're smarter than me?" she screamed into the empty air. "You think you're going to get away with this?" Searching under the pillow, Martha found a carefully folded piece of paper, an old blood test result from when Alissa was 6 years old. The data was blurry, but the National Hospital stamp was still visible. Martha tore it up and burned it in an ashtray. "No one can know. No one." That night, Smith called Alissa. "I've contacted someone who can help, but I need more data. I want to do a scan of your head." "I'm not sure Martha will let that happen. We don't need her permission anymore." Smith sent an urgent request to a private diagnostic imaging center he worked with. Under the category of medical emergency, he took Alissa for a brain scan. When the images appeared on the screen, Emily's face went pale. "Doctor, her olfactory area is completely enveloped in an abnormal structure." "Not just enveloped," whispered Smith. "It is fused, and it seems to have integrated part of her central nervous system." Alissa, sitting nearby, held her head. "I hear voices in my head, not words, more like orders." At that moment, Paul Davis arrived at Smith's clinic. After watching the video, he spoke immediately. "That's it. Johnson described it once, a microscopic organism that integrates with nerve tissue and sensory receptors. It can learn, it can grow, and it can control the host. Is there a way to remove it?" Paul sighed. "They tried surgical removal. Once, 3 children died in 10 minutes. And Alissa, she has survived for 6 years. Maybe the implant she received was incomplete. It needed time." Smith looked at Paul resolutely. "Whatever it takes, I'm going to save this girl." That night, in the small guest room where Miss Thesa was hosting Alissa, Smith visited her. "Do you want to be free of this, Alissa?" "More than anything. I don't want to live as a cage for this thing anymore." Smith nodded. "Then trust me. We need more proof. We need to extract a tissue sample." "A sample? You mean cut a piece out?" "Just a tiny part. It won't damage your nerves." "Can you handle it?" Alissa took a deep breath. "I can handle it as long as it loses control over me." The next morning at the clinic, Smith performed an endoscopic nasal biopsy under local anesthesia. Alissa stayed still, biting a towel. The camera entered as before. A microscalpel was activated. As soon as it touched the organism's tissue, the screen glitched violently and Alissa jumped. "Stop!" cried Emily, her heart rate racing. Smith withdrew the scalpel, but a red flash pulsed on the screen. It wasn't from the camera light. It was a bioluminescent reaction from the organism. The eye opened again. This time it didn't blink. It stared back deep, cold, unwavering. After the failed biopsy, Smith sat back, catching his breath and wiping sweat from his forehead. It knows. It knows we are trying to kill it. Alissa opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. And it won't let us. Smith sent the remaining tissue sample to the lab. The preliminary results gave him goosebumps. The cells were neither human nor purely parasitic. The DNA sequence contained synthetic biological code. He whispered, "This isn't just a medical experiment. It's a form of neurobiological weapon." His office was bathed in a cold blue-white glow. On the computer screen, streams of genetic data scrolled by. The tissue taken from Alissa did not match any known biological structure. Not parasitic, not a mutation. "This thing was designed," whispered Smith. Beside him, Dr. Paul Davis frowned. "I've never seen an organism integrate directly into the nervous system without being rejected by the immune system. It's as if it was designed to make friends with the body or control it," Smith replied. His eyes fixed on the screen. Paul slowly nodded. "Do you think Martha knows?" Smith's jaw tightened. "She's not just in the know. She was a part of it." That night, Smith went to the city's medical archives. With the help of a former colleague, Isabel Morgan, an archivist, he obtained temporary access. "Just one night, Michael. If they find out I helped you." "Thank you, Isabel. I'll take full responsibility." Smith went through the treatment records from 2017 when Alissa was 6 years old. The treating physician was listed as Dr. Richard Johnson. The medical assistant, Martha Parker. Below it, an annotation in red, "Experiment terminated. Patient sample failed." Smith trembled. Failed? Then why was Alissa still alive? Isabel approached and pointed to an internal transfer form. After the project's dissolution, Johnson retired and Martha disappeared from the staff list. She changed her name in the system and registered as Alissa's legal guardian only 3 months after her father's accident. Smith turned abruptly. That accident was a murder to keep him quiet. The next morning, Smith went to the school where Alissa's father had worked as a physics teacher. He met the former principal, Mr. Matthew Rogers, a dry man in his 60s, his face serious and tense. Alissa's father, Alan Wilson, was a good man, said Rogers. Dedicated, honest, always asking questions. Did he ever investigate anything related to medical issues? Rogers nodded slowly. One day, he came here with a stack of photocopied documents. He said someone had injected something strange into his daughter without his consent. The hospital denied it, but he started gathering evidence. 2 weeks later, he died in a so-called elevator fall accident. Smith clenched his fist. It wasn't an accident. I know, but no one dared to investigate. A few days later, a woman named Martha suddenly declared herself the legal stepmother and obtained full custody of Alissa. In the small apartment where Miss Thesa was temporarily housing her, Alissa sat staring blankly out the window. Her eyes were dry. There were no tears left to cry. Thesa poured tea and sat next to her. Did you sleep last night, my dear? It wouldn't let me. It kept whispering in my head. Strange thoughts. What kind of thoughts? It wants to stay. It hates the light. It hates the scalpel. It enjoys my pain. Thesa gently squeezed her hand. You aren't a creature. You are a human being, and Dr. Smith is going to save you. Alissa pressed her lips together. But Martha, she knows something. I'm sure she's more than just a stepmother. At the same time, Smith visited Martha under the pretext of reviewing medical results. She opened the door with her usual calm demeanor, but her eyes betrayed tension. I thought you understood. I asked you to stop getting involved. I just need to see these medications. What you were giving Alice at night. Martha crossed her arms. That's none of your business. You were giving her high-dose sleeping pills. One of them is banned for minors. She suffers from insomnia. What was I supposed to do? And you're violating my custody rights. Smith stepped closer, his voice low and sharp. You aren't her real guardian. You were Johnson's assistant. You implanted that thing in her nose. You silenced her father. And now you're afraid the truth will come out. Martha gave a smirk, but her eyes flickered. You think you know everything? You're wrong, doctor. You can't imagine what lives in her. I know it's a synthetic organism. And I'm going to expose everything. No one will believe you. And no one survives contact with the Neural Circuit Project. That night, Smith video called Paul. I need you to dig deeper into the Neural Circuit Project. I don't believe it was ever truly shut down. I think it's still active, just buried. Paul displayed files on his screen. You're right. I just found a suspicious budget entry from the science department in 2019. No description, just the label Johnson 4.0. My God, they never stopped. And Alissa is the living proof. Alissa was writing in her journal at Thesa's. Her handwriting was shaky, the words uneven. It learns faster. Every time I'm afraid, it gets stronger. Every time I'm angry, it throbs as if it's comforting me. Sometimes I can't tell if a thought is mine or its. I'm afraid. One day, I will disappear. Late that night, Smith reviewed the endoscopy video again. Every time he watched it, the eye gave him goosebumps. This time, he paused the sequence at the moment the eye opened widest. He increased the contrast. Suddenly, he saw a small network of blood vessels forming around the eye, modeling what seemed to be secondary brain tissue. He whispered, "It's developing its own brain." The night air in Chicago was colder than usual. In the silent apartment, Alissa sat upright in her bed. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow. The wall clock showed nearly 2 in the morning, but she couldn't sleep. Not because she feared Martha, not because of nightmares, but because it was awake. I know you can hear me, whispered Alissa, her voice raspy and dry. You live in me? There was no response, but a dull pulsation starting from the bridge of her nose moved up to her forehead like a soft wave, not exactly pain, but something that brushed against the deepest part of her mind. I won't let you control me. Then a thought crossed her mind, clear as a spoken voice. We need each other. Without me, you are empty. Alissa backed away, holding her head. No, I am me. I am not your vessel. There was a knock at her door. Alissa, are you okay? The soft voice of Thesa floated inside. I'm fine, I just can't sleep. Dr. Smith is coming tomorrow. Try to rest. Alissa didn't answer. Her throat was dry. The itch in her nose returned, but this time it reached deep into her skull. Meanwhile, at the clinic, Dr. Smith made an urgent call to the police. I need to report a case of child endangerment with potentially life-threatening risks. The victim is Alissa Wilson, 12 years old. The voice at the other end replied slowly. Do you have physical evidence, doctor? Yes. Endoscopic images reveal a living organism inside her nasal cavity. The child has been beaten, drugged, and locked in dark closets. The stepmother is Martha Parker, former research assistant for Dr. Richard Johnson. That sounds like a science fiction movie. It sounds real if you see the eye wide open inside this child's brain. I'm not joking. There was a pause. Then the officer's voice softened. We will send an emergency response unit. Please send us the address. Martha had lost all composure. In her cold kitchen, she was stirring a packet of white powder into a cup of hot milk. On the table was a bottle labeled midazolam with a red warning. Not to be used in children under 16. They won't take her, she muttered to herself. Not when she's so close to the final phase. She opened her handbag, took out a syringe, drew liquid from a small glass vial, and headed silently toward the room where Alissa was staying. Thesa answered the door when Martha rang. I'm here to take Alissa home. The doctor said she should rest in her own bed. It's 2 in the morning. Thisa frowned. I'm just worried about her. And I have the legal right to keep her here until morning according to the agreement with the police. You should leave. Martha smiled thinly. Are you sure you'll live until morning? Before Thisa could react, Martha hit her with a sudden punch to the neck. She collapsed, unconscious. Martha went in, entering the house like a shadow. In the bedroom, Alissa was leaning against the wall when the door burst open. Get up, you little freak. Alissa's eyes widened. She tried to stand. What did you do to Miss Thisa? She slept for a while. You're not my mother. Martha approached, snickering. You're right. I'm not your mother. I've been watching you since the start of the experiment. What experiment? The Neural Circuit Project. Johnson and I implanted the organism in you when you were 6. You're the only one who survived. Why? Why me? Because you are the child of a traitor, Alan Wilson. Your father worked for the Department of Education. He discovered the project and planned to reveal it. So I seduced him, married him, and made him believe you needed special treatment. Alissa backed away, tears flowing. You killed my father? Yes, and I'll kill you too if you don't shut up. She pulled out the syringe and stepped closer. Alissa screamed. Help! Someone! Help me! Just then, the front door swung wide open. Officer Smith led a team of 3 officers. Drop the syringe! Martha turned, her face twisted in rage. You're too late. She plunged the needle into her own arm and collapsed onto the floor, foaming at the mouth. Smith rushed toward Alissa. Are you okay? I think so. She injected herself. An officer confirmed, it's not a lethal dose. It's an anticonvulsant. Probably a biochemical trigger response. We're taking her. Alissa was taken to the hospital. The whole way, she repeated the same phrase over and over. You believe me now, don't you? Smith held her hand. I don't just believe you. I'm going to save you. I promise. The ambulance siren echoed through the corridors of the University of Chicago Medical Center. Alissa was rushed to the EE in a deep coma. Her nose was bleeding uncontrollably. Each time a doctor wiped the blood, a thick black mucus seeped out, foul-smelling like something in decomposition. Blood pressure dropping rapidly. Irregular heart rhythm. Call Dr. Smith and get the imaging team down here now. Smith came running, putting on his coat while shouting, Where is she? Nurse Emily stopped him. She's undergoing an emergency scan. Smith, she might not survive if this thing reaches her brain. Smith clenched his fists. We won't let that happen. In the control room, the scan images appeared slowly. The monitor revealed a root-like structure, similar to tentacles, growing from the nasal cavity directly into the olfactory nerve, clutching the base of the frontal lobe. What is that? A doctor exclaimed. Smith froze. He pointed to the screen. That isn't human tissue. It's a living organism forming a neural connection with the brain. Is it alien? A doctor asked quietly. No, man-made. A forbidden experiment combining neurosensory tissues. Banned since 2017. Can we remove it? Smith took a deep breath. We have to operate, and we have to do it now. At the Queens District Police Station, Martha sat handcuffed in the interrogation room. Her face was pale, her hair messy, but her eyes remained cold and defiant. Detective Rebecca Taylor sat across from her. Placing 3 photos on the table, one of the endoscopic image of the organism in Alissa's nose, one of Martha's personnel file from the Johnson Institute, and the third, a copy of Alan Wilson's death certificate. You know what we have, don't you? Martha remained silent. Rebecca pushed the endoscopic image closer. This is the eye of the biological organism inside Alissa's nasal cavity. The child you implanted it in when she was only 6 years old. Martha gave a faint, mocking smile. You call that an organism? No, it is an evolutionary structure. You admit to working with Johnson? I don't deny it. And you were romantically involved with Alissa's father before killing him. Silence. Rebecca leaned forward over the table. I don't need a confession. Dr. Smith's video, the archived files, and the testimonies of your former colleagues are enough to charge you with child abuse, premeditated murder, and conducting illegal biological experiments. Martha spoke slowly, her eyes glazed. Don't you understand? If Alissa survives, she will become the first neural interface of the human species. You've just killed the future. Rebecca gave a smug smile. No, we are saving a child from the monster you helped create. In the operating room, Alissa lay motionless, her face pale as snow, her heart rate unstable. Dr. Smith stood over the table across from Dr. Samuel Harris, chief of neurosurgery. Are you sure, Michael? If we touch the olfactory tract wrong, we've waited long enough. It's spreading to the frontal lobe. If we don't remove it now, it will take over her nervous system. Then let's begin. The operation lasted 6 hours. Smith led the procedure. Every incision was calculated, every movement measured. The organism clung to her neural tissue like tentacles. Every attempt to peel it off carried a risk of brain hemorrhage. Halfway through, Alissa's heart stopped. Cardiac arrest. Get the defibrillator. Someone shouted. Samuel yelled. We can't stop now. Part of the eye has reached the base of the brain. Smith shouted. Clear. 3, 2, 1, shock. The monitor jumped. Alissa's heart began to beat again. The team exhaled in relief. Once the organism was entirely removed, Smith sealed it in a glass containment jar. Inside, the black mass with its fixed eyes was still moving, observing everyone in the room as if it were still alive. Emily shivered. It's looking at us. Smith shook his head. No, it is now cut off from its nervous system. It is just a lifeless body. Alissa was transferred to the recovery room. Nurses surrounded her, machines monitoring every vital sign. Smith sat next to her, gently holding her small hand. An hour later, Alissa stirred and slowly opened her eyes. Doctor? Alissa, can you hear me? Is it still there? Smith smiled gently. It's gone. You're free now. 2 days later, media across the United States exploded. Headlines from the New York Times, Washington Post, and Chicago Tribune read, Neural parasite, young girl survives 6 years of illegal experimentation. Martha Parker, Johnson project assistant, arrested on multiple counts. Dr. Michael Smith, who discovered a living organism in a child's nasal cavity, nominated for the Lasker Award for Medical Excellence. At the police station, Martha sat alone in her cell. A cold white light cast shadows on her gaunt face, her eyes distant. A young policewoman entered and handed her a folded newspaper. Fresh off the press, Dr. Smith has just been granted legal guardianship of Alissa. The girl is recovering well. Martha didn't answer. The officer added, You lost. Martha gave a dry laugh and whispered, You only cut off its tail. At the hospital, Alissa sat in her bed, holding Dr. Smith's hand. Do you still feel it? No, just an emptiness. But lighter. Still strange. You are the strongest person I've ever met. And now you can start all over again. Alissa smiled, her eyes bright with life. Doctor, I don't just want to be a survivor. I want to understand. I want to study it. I want to study neuroscience. Smith remained silent for a few seconds, then smiled warmly. Then I will help you no matter what. 6 years later, on a small plaza across from the National Institute of Neurosciences in San Francisco, the soft spring breeze danced in the air. The sun shone on Alissa's brown hair, now 18 years old, tall, confident, with sharp and determined eyes. She wore a white blouse under a navy blue blazer, a name tag pinned to her chest. Neuroscience researcher, University of San Francisco. Alissa stood before the 3-story glass building, her heart full. She took a deep breath for the first time in years. Her nose didn't itch. There was no more stench, no more eye watching from the inside. Next to her stood a graying man with a kind smile. Dr. Michael Smith, now in his 50s, an honorary professor at the University of Chicago. We did it, he said, his voice warm. The first step of a new journey. I still can't believe it. I was really admitted. You weren't just admitted. You earned it. Alissa gave a light laugh, her eyes misty. If you hadn't believed me back then I wouldn't have saved a genius. They exchanged a look. No more words were necessary. The long nights, the nightmares, the horrific scans, all that was behind them now. Just memories and motivation. That evening, Alissa appeared on a special American television show titled Through Hell, a true story of survival. She sat in the center of the stage under soft lights. The host, a middle-aged woman named Claire Monroe, began. Ladies and gentlemen, the young woman before you is a living symbol, a survivor of one of the most shocking bioethics cases in recent U.S. history. Alissa gave a humble smile, eyes downcast at her hands on her knees. Thank you, Miss Claire. I am deeply moved to be here to finally share a story that, at the time, almost no one believed. The host nodded, her voice soft. Can you share with the audience what was the most painful thing you went through? Alissa paused for a moment, then spoke with a clear and firm voice. The most painful thing was not the creature in my nose. It wasn't the blows or the disgust in people's eyes. It was telling the truth out loud and having no one believe me. To be treated as if I were crazy, a nuisance. Just because what I felt didn't match the world's idea of normality. The auditorium fell completely silent. She continued, if it hadn't been for Dr. Smith, if there hadn't been an adult brave enough to ask questions, to listen, I might have died like my father. And that creature, it could have multiplied. Claire Monroe wiped away a tear. And now, what do you want to do with this new life? I want to become a neurologist, but not just to treat diseases. I want to study what medicine hasn't yet dared to name, so that no other child has to scream in despair like I did once. Thundering applause erupted throughout the hall. Many stood up. After the show, Alissa returned to her hotel room and opened the old laptop Dr. Smith had given her when she was 16. On the screen, dozens of research papers appeared. Studies on the olfactory nervous system, mechanisms of foreign cell stimulation, and anatomical files on the organism now officially classified as a type A biological threat. She opened a file, staring at the old photo. The endoscopic image of the living eye inside her nose. Its cold, alien gaze. Alissa whispered, You once controlled me. You made me believe you were a part of me, but you are just a memory. And I won. She clicked the power button. The screen went black. A week later, at the Pan American Young Researchers Scholarship Ceremony in Boston, Alissa walked onto the stage to receive her award. Before hundreds of professors and international experts, she gave her speech in fluent German. I didn't come here to tell a tragedy. I came because I believe science can save lives, but it can also destroy them when it lacks ethics. I'm the result of a mistake, but I chose to turn that mistake into knowledge. That is why I will dedicate my life to studying the boundary between life and control. The whole auditorium stood, applauding non-stop. Back in the United States, Martha Parker was sentenced to 26 years in prison without the possibility of parole for murder, child abuse, illegal experimentation, and obstruction of a criminal investigation. At the final hearing, when asked if she had anything to say to the victim, Martha looked silently at Alissa, who had testified on the stand, then turned away without a word. Alissa did not look back. At the end of that summer in Chicago, Smith organized a small farewell party at his house to celebrate Alissa's upcoming long-term research trip to Germany. Colleagues, former students, and nurse Emily came. There were laughs, soft music, and even a few tears. Emily toasted with Alissa. I still remember the way that creature looked at us. But when I look into your eyes now, I know who won. I didn't win alone. Everyone who believed in me did, replied Alissa. Smith approached and handed her a small box. A farewell gift. Alissa opened it. Inside was a surgical cap embroidered with the words, Conquerant de l'Obscurit, the one who conquered the darkness. She hugged him tight. I'll wear it on the first day of my residency. On her last night in America, Alissa stood at her window, looking out at the bright city lights. She took a deep breath. A cool breeze passed, carrying the slight scent of the lemon trees that lined the street. There was no more stench, no more itching, no more fear, only faith. She closed her eyes and whispered like a vow. I survived, and from now on, I will live for the children no one believes. Alissa's story reminds us that the truth, however deeply buried, will always find a way out if someone is brave enough to listen to and protect it. Sometimes, the most dangerous monster is not the one hiding in the shadows, but the apathy of a world that refuses to recognize someone else's pain. In a society full of doubt and judgment, the most precious thing is belief in the voice of those who are never heard. And sometimes, all it takes is one person who believes in you. That alone can save you from the darkness. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing you heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.